I expected. And that's the reality. So we're going through a little bit of a sell-off today. Black Tuesday, you know. I mean, I have to honestly say, I thought it was much, much worse. You know, because I, just like other people, I kind of woke up. I looked through a few streams, and then I saw some people like, "Whoa, it's a horrible opening." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh God, you know what's going on now?" And then I went and looked, and I'm like, "Oh, all right, you know, big deal. All right, so the ES is down 70, Nasdaq's down 350." Yeah, Dow is down. Dow's really not down that much. Dow's only down like 343. Yeah, okay. So, so what? But, yeah, that was kind of, I woke up to that, and then I'm like, oh my God, you know, what's going on? And then I'm looking, and I'm like, okay. It's really not that bad. But, you know, it's not great. I mean, I'm getting whacked pretty hard. I mean, I put my account up here. I'm down $5,000 today. You know, but, you know, I put it in perspective. I've been up I was up over 50 grand in my accounts. So, I mean, you know, this was bound to happen, and I'm not going to time it. There's no way I'm timing it. I'm going to have a ton of stuff that's going to get hit today, but I'm also going to have a ton of stuff that's probably going to be okay, because a lot of stuff in here is all covered calls, like Mike Campbell Soup, Freeport McMoran, that might get hit today. That's down to about 40, but I'm in good shape in that. I got 45 days on that. This GIS, that's a covered call. So some stuff's going to do okay, because I have been doing a little bit of, you know, not a ton, but I've been doing a little bit of damage control in case something happens. So anyway, I kind of expected this to happen at some point, only because, and I'll put the ES up here, only because what I've been seeing more of in the last 2 weeks. I've been seeing more and more new people on my investment feed, you know, coming out saying, you know, oh, the wheel strategy, and oh, this strategy, and oh, all you do is, and all I've been doing to make, you know, one woman, I was like, I almost fell off my chair. She's like, oh, what I've been doing to make $20,000 a month is just selling cash secure puts. It's like, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, that's really great that you've been able to do that, because you know what? You know, and if you're making $20,000 a month doing that, you must have an account that's a couple of $1 million, because the math doesn't math. If you're making 20 grand, look, I've been doing this a long time. I can kind of figure out. And so I knew right away that she was full of shit about making, especially about making the 20,000. She may have well been making 20,000 a month, but it wasn't just on this cash secured puts. More than likely, it was like she owns some stock. Those stocks went up and crazy like everything else, and she happened to have some cash secured puts as well. Anyway, and I've been seeing more and more of that crap, and that's what kind of led me to believe that I kind of felt like, especially in the last couple of weeks, something was going to happen, because I keep seeing more and more of that. And usually when I see more and more of that, that usually signals that there's some top coming, because you have all these people out there, you know, oh, here's all you do. It's like, yeah, well, here's all you do. You know, it's like, all right, and it's like I always wind up following those people because I know what's going to happen. If we go through a span here, let's say we go through a span here in November and December, and maybe into January, where we kind of have, what I would call just a choppy market, where we're just not going anywhere. We're just kind of chopping around left and right, which I kind of expect that to happen. I mean, it's bound to happen. The market just can't keep going up like this indefinitely. It's not good, and it's not natural. And, it leads to bigger and worse corrections. So anyway, and by seeing that, and I know in 6 months, I'm going to go back and those people are either A, not going to be around anymore, or B, they're just going to literally be like grasping at straws, trying to justify why whatever it is they were doing isn't working anymore, and they're going to be off and on to something else, guaranteed. And then more than likely, if they were becoming somewhat successful in in a real strong bull market, they're going to be trying to sell shit to people, because they're going to ultimately find out that, look, nobody really makes any money in this business, because if you're in this business, if you're somebody like me, you don't sell anything. You just kind of put information out there, and you realize that over time, like, most of these people, the only way they make money is selling shit. They don't really make money trading or investing. And so sadly, there's a lot of that going on out there. So anyway, here's the ES. Let's put on I'm going to go with the tick chart. I don't know if I'd really want to short this here in here. We had a pretty bad morning. I mean, huge dip down. And I would probably say this is more of a little more of like a black swan type of thing. I don't know what happened overnight. It doesn't look like anything. I'm looking at the tape here, and I'm not really seeing anything newsworthy, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just not even paying attention to what's going on. But I haven't seen any news that would tell me, like, oh yeah, But maybe I just haven't looked thoroughly enough. But I don't really see any news or anything, and I'll look through here. It just says here, NASDAQ in tech lead sell-off. That's it. U.S. futures down. And I think a lot of it may had to do with Palantir coming out with earnings and having them they were actually off the charts. You've had all these tech companies pretty much release their earnings now, and they were all really good. And you got this government shutdown kind of sitting around out there, and that maybe, what triggered everybody overnight to say, all of a sudden, let's run for the gate. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. And there is no way anybody can predict this. And if anybody's going to come and say, yeah, shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Look, the market was frothy. Let's face it. It's been really frothy for a while. And the fact that we're getting a little bit of a sell-off here, yeah, I'm embracing it. I actually think it's good. I think it's cool, because I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to look at a few things here, and I might step in and do a little dip buying. I mean, I didn't realize we got as low as 67.87 overnight. I think that's a little bit of a shocker to me. Let me actually pull something up that I can use, which is the 1 hour. Do I even have a 1 hour saved? Yes. Which is the 1 hour. I normally like the 1 hour. I mean, we kind of bounced off. If you were to call this, and this is a volume profile here on the 20-day, we kind of bounced off a pretty significant support number here. And if you look here, right, you got this big band of profile that sticks out here. Now, the one thing we don't know is, we could kind of go in, but generally speaking, this high volume node is what kind of propelled the market up to its next level. You had this, we broke that today or overnight and probably yesterday. And now we're here. So now the key thing is what do we do from here? Do we bounce here? Was this enough selling to kind of get us back into some kind of equilibrium? I don't know. I mean, from a volume profile point of view, there's this, which is where we're at right now, which is a very small band of no profile, and another small band above it with a small little scooch in between, which is where this gap is. So, again, just trying to be technical here, and I'm not really a technical person. I mean, I do look at this stuff, but, I try to make sense of it some way, shape, or form, and I'm just trying to do that here. And so what I'm getting at is, was this enough to kind of give the bears or the sellers enough? And was this enough to kind of give the bulls a little bit of, we'll call it, momentum here to kind of step in and maybe start buying stuff again? I don't know. That remains to be seen. I don't know. Maybe we get another leg down. Let's look at this on here, because I kind of think there might be a trade here. And I'm going to go into the futures. I'm going to look at the micros. I would have liked to seen or been up from last night, but we got a pretty decent bounce off of that. We bounced. I mean, again, just looking back at this chart here, that's a pretty big bounce. Let's even go into the tick chart again. That's a pretty big bounce overnight. That we tagged 67. Try and zoom in here. It's the one thing I have a problem with these charts. They are kind of crappy. 67.87. Now we're trading 68.05. Is this a bounce? I mean, and that is a huge. I mean, look at this. Look at this turnaround. I mean, this wasn't like no small little bounce. I mean, literally tagged this, and then it was like nothing but a buying frenzy all the way back up to 86.17. And now we seem to be kind of backing off a little bit. So that's pretty, I don't know, it's interesting to me. Now, is this the kind of covering wave, right? Was this like a short covering wave? Till we got back up here and then kind of exhausted out, and then now we seem to be back on a downtrend. And do we come back now and tag this and breach it? I don't know. If I knew that, I'd be a millionaire, right? So anyway, in looking at this, I kind of think there might be, and then I'm looking at the tape here and I'm seeing there's a lot of stuff across. It's a pretty broad-based sell-off. I mean, literally I'm seeing, 3%, 4%, 20%. So it's a pretty broad sell-off here. And so it should be pretty interesting. I'm actually going to buy some here. Why not? I'm actually going to buy some. I'm just going to buy one. I'm going to put a stop right down at the whole number. And we'll go 25. Let me just hold this for a second. I'm just going to do 1 here because we look relatively strong here. I mean, and I'm going to just go ahead and, yeah, I'm going to just put a stop right here. Okay. All right. So there's my stop at 68.0150. I'm in. I'm going to see if I can maybe ride this. I think we, just based on this tape action here, I think we get back up to 68, whatever this was, 68.18, 18 change. And I think we kind of reverse here. And so I have my stop down here at 68. So I'm not risking a ton. It's only a one contract. It's a little MES. It's a micro. But that's kind of those are the perfect trades to take, folks, when the market is like this. Don't let anybody fool you, and it's not that I don't have the money. It's just I don't want that kind of, we're going to get a lot of price swings in here, and knowing that the most I can lose here is maybe 50 or 60 bucks just doesn't really, and I have a potential that if this does come all the way back, I can make a couple of hundred. Now, look, I could probably make a couple of thousand, and then I'd be able to make a TikTok on it and say, I don't give a shit. But to me, this is kind of my way of just kind of participating in this and seeing if I can, chalk a little money up on a little reversal. So anyway, there you go. And then we're just going to let that one ride. And so let's look at Palantir. Let's look at Palantir. Now, their earnings, now I had mentioned yesterday I was really not interested in doing anything with them for earnings. And it had more to do with the fact that this thing's just been on an absolute tear. I mean, it was down at 65 back in March, and it actually hit 222, but it was up trading near 202. And even though earnings were great and they knocked the cover off the ball on everything, here it is now sitting at 191, literally over $10 down, 15 bucks and change, from an earnings report that they knocked the cover off the ball. Why? I don't know. Maybe if we weren't at all-time record highs again, maybe, it would have made another leg up. But there's a lot of people sitting with profits with this. There's the market, again, it's at all-time record highs. So I know if I'm a trader and I have a, hedge fund, I'm trimming some off. I know I'm trimming some off because you're going to think in the back of your head, all right, yeah, this quarter was great, but is it sustainable? Are they going to be able to do it over and over? They beat the mark on everything. How much longer is that going to last? And, knowing just how things work in the markets, they usually don't. And that's kind of what I think you're seeing here, is that you're kind of seeing, a lot of profit taking. Now, whether it continues, remains to be seen. But, if I'm looking at this from a trader's point of view, I'm relatively bullish. Now, I own, full disclosure, I own Palantir. My cost basis is like 17 bucks. And I don't own a ton of it. I only own 100 shares. And let me just do this. Okay, I have that. I only own 100 shares, but I own it 17, and I have no No chance of me selling it. To me, I'm gonna hold on to that one till it's hopefully well over $1,000. It's just kind of my feeling. I don't know how long that's gonna take, but I think it's gonna get there. I think it's one of those companies that does have the potential. Does it? I don't know. But I guess more importantly, what do you do here, right? Now, I think you're going to see the IV rank on Palantir today, even though they had earnings. I think you're going to see it remain elevated. And why? Because overall volatility in the market, because we're selling off here, or we have sold off, is probably going to stay high. So you can possibly do something in here. And I'm going to mix a little bit of technical analysis here on Palantir with some options. And what I see is I see a lot of support down here at 170. Right? So if you just look from the run that it had in September, right? You see all these touches here, and that 170 seemed to be a pretty decent level of support. Also, down here at 150. Now, I really hope it doesn't go down to 150. It quite possibly could. It had this massive run. It's very easily could go down. So anyway, with that being said, I'm looking at 170 as kind of a good spot for me to be. So even if it does continue to back off here, I'm going to try and sell some of this volatility today in Palantir. So, and then, again, you look at this, I see this as, that is pretty significant. So with that being said, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go out in time. Now you can see here, the dot here, I already have some options in Palantir. I showed them to you yesterday. They're quite significantly in the money. They're calls. I'm going to go on the other side of this and I'm going to do a little put spread. And I'm likely going to go out to March. Okay. I'm going to go out further than January. I don't think 73 days. I think March. And the reason I'm going to go out to March is it kind of gets me past the fourth quarter, right? Because then we get into January's earnings. And March gives me, I think, enough time to kind of participate in that, and also gives me some time for some of this volatility to kind of collapse in on itself. And so I'm going to go out to March, and I'm going to look at the 170, and the 170 put. The 170 put is paying me 13. Now, this is probably only going to be, let's see, we're at 192. Chances are that's going to be about $10, 10 to 10.50. It's not going to be $13, right? Because these prices are not reflective of the current market price. So I have to kind of extrapolate here. So if I sell the 70 at a 30 delta, that delta is going to be a little higher as well. So you're talking about close to maybe 35 shares. It's going to be about 35 shares. Okay. And you're only going to use $1,700 of buying power. Which isn't bad. And this probability of profit might be about 60%. So anyway, I'm extrapolating here. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm going to sit. So I'm going to do a 170, and I'm going to just Yeah, I wish they would just price. That's one thing I hate about the market. I don't like the fact that now we're 24/7, but they don't come in and price the damn options pre-market. I mean, it's kind of bullshit. I mean, they know what the price of these things are going to be on the open. They know what they're going to be. They're already calculated. You don't think they already know? They're already calculated based on the price. They know. It's freaking an algo. It's all computerized. They already know. As soon as it opens, they know. But anyway, I'm going to do a little bit wider spread. I'm going to do a 170, 160. So it's going to be a $10 wide. And I'm probably going to be able to pull in like 250, 300 here. So that's the trade I'm looking to do. I don't think it's going to be $3. I think it's going to be more like 250. I'll just put 250 in there. But even with that being said, to me, that's going to be a way for you to kind of get long Palantir, take advantage of a little volatility here as like an after earnings trade, and do a little dip buying. All right, so that's kind of where I'm at with Palantir, and that's kind of where I feel like I want to be. Now, the other thing too with this is I think this is also one where you could do, and one thing that's nice about Tasty Trade, you come up here. I also like this trade, which is the ratio. So we do the short, put, and go. And the ratio trade, I would still sit at 170. So I would sit at 170 for my buy. I would sell 2 of the 165s. That one brings in about 1,500. And so that's yet another. I don't think you're going to get $10 for this. I think it's probably going to be closer to 8, probably about 850. So anyway, and the nice thing about this, and the nice thing about Palantir is that the buying power really isn't, that destructive to me. Anyway, I think that's pretty good. So there's another trade for you, which is the ratio trade I don't want that. The ratio trade, the ratio trade in Palantir. So you have 2, right? So you could either do the 170, 160 put spread, completely risk defined. You don't have it. Don't panic. Oh my God, I'm short puts. What if it gets breached? It's risk defined. The most you're going to lose on that trade is like $700. Most you're going to make is 250, but you got a good probability of profit. And you're out in March. You have a lot of time. What was it, 130 something days you have on that? So you got a lot of time. Or if you want to be a little more aggressive, do the ratio. All right, and that's that. That's all I have to say about Palantir. And the reason I would stay away from the calls here is because this volatility is high. Unless you're going to sell them. And I really don't want to sell calls in Palantir because it's just one of those stocks where I think, selling calls can really blow you up. It's just one of those stocks that I just do not feel comfortable selling calls. Unless they're covered. If you're going to do a covered call, either a covered call or some kind of covered call spread, I guess you could. I really have to see how they come in and price them, though, on the calls, because the calls will always have a tendency on being higher. Right? Call prices will always have a tendency. There's always generally, for the most part, unless the stock is a complete piece of shit, there's always a little call skew, right? Because Just face it. You know, institutions and individual investors just feel more comfortable buying calls. It is what it is, I guess. I don't know why, but that's just the case. So that would be the only thing that I would just be aware of. If you want to sell calls, and if you want to sell calls, you're going to need to go into, I wouldn't go out to March and sell calls. If I was going to sell calls, I would either do November, if you want to be that aggressive, do November or December. And the reason is that if you're going to sell those calls, you're doing it because of these volatility numbers. And if you want to get really aggressive, go on the weekly here, because that's where the most volatility is. But I don't really like the weeklies. I never liked the weeklies. I know there's a ton of people that would differ from me on that, and they say, no, weeklies are great. I don't like the weeklies. I don't like them. And so if I was going to sell calls, I'd be a call seller in November or December. Probably in November, because the implied volatility is much more exploded. In November, you can see here, it's a $28 move as opposed to, and it's at 81% as opposed to December, $37 move and only 69%. So you are getting a little bit more. And this should get elevated a little bit, seeing that Palantir kind of sold off after earnings. And then if I was going to land anywhere on this, it would probably be more so up here. Over 245, right around here. And I would go all the way up, depending on how much they're looking to give you. But I would stay over 245, which is the one standard deviation. This actually might move too. This is most likely going to move down probably to the 235. Yeah, that's going to move to the 235 today, if they haven't already moved it. But yeah, I would stay up in this area if I was. And, the other thing is up here is you have a lot of open interest, right? 2K, 3K, 6K. So there's a lot of open interest up there. And it looks like they added a ton of strikes. They added a lot of 250 strikes in here, all up and down the option chain. So that's enough of Palantir. I beat that one to death. To death. And then there's earnings tonight. And I think the only notable one tonight is, I believe, let's go to tonight. Let's go. Okay, here we go. I think it's, is it? No, Yum announced. No, I guess it's not tonight. For some reason, I thought, no, there wasn't anything. Wasn't there one more? I don't really see anything. Yes, AMD. That's right, AMD. And so what I'm doing for AMD, and today kind of represents a pretty interesting day here for AMD. I'm going to kind of hold off on this, and what I might do today is I might actually broadcast a half hour before the close, because I really can't do anything in here with this being down like what, $8-9 today. I'm gonna actually, you're gonna get a higher volatility is definitely gonna spike in here for sure. IV rank is at 55. That's gonna probably get elevated a little bit today. So I'm actually going to go with kind of holding off on it and see where it is when I want to do it. But if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to likely do a November. And the reason I like AMD is, and these are actually going to be repriced, kind of like this strangle. Oh, look at this. Details have been sent. Way to go. Tasty trade. fucking garbage. Fucking garbage, man. Anyway, the reason why I say that is, you know what? Tasty Trade runs on Microsoft. And you know why I know that? Because if you don't reboot it every freaking day, it has a problem. Typical Microsoft garbage. Always has to be rebooted. Anyway, it was a 215, 260. Was it 260? No. No, it was the 300. The 215, 300. Strangle. I kind of like this one. I still even like this one here. But to me, this is going to be this is a good trade for AMD for earnings. 215, 230, 300. It comes in with a little bit of negative delta. I think today it actually won't. I think today this will actually be closer to neutral on the delta, just from the price action here, and pretty good buying power. And the nice thing about this is that if you don't have the juice to do this, brings in 750 credit. The thing about this is if you don't have the juice to do this, you can definitely do a poor man's Iron Condor, which is a 10 wide. And still pull in a decent amount of juice on this and still have a probability of profit of 70. And that's what that one looks like. And to me, those are both good and they're both viable and they kind of fit two different types of accounts. So if you have the buying power, do the strangle, right? That's always the key. That's always the ball game, folks. Because I've had people ask me, why would you do a strangle versus do an Iron Condor or some kind of wrist defined? It all comes down to Buck Rogers. That's all it is. It's all about money. If you have the buying power, and that buying power doesn't represent more than 1 or 2% of your total capital, then do the strangle. If it does and you have issues, and you don't have the buying power, don't go out and stretch that. Do the covered. And if you don't even have this, if you want to, just do a traditional. Do a traditional Iron Condor, which is 5 wide on either side. Now, we're not getting good pricing on this because the market's not open. Likely you're going to be able to get more money for this. You probably get about $1.25 for this. That's usually about what they run. Whoa, what the hell? I just sent that? What, are you kidding me? I didn't hit anything. What a way to go, Tasty Trade. Anyway, I'm actually going to be buying an Iron Condor now. I got to cancel that before. So anyway, there's my AMD trade. You saw it live. And there you have it. And so that's really all I have. And so as far as everything else, look at all these stocks today. I would be looking at Microsoft, looking at all these names, these big names that have been kind of running away from a lot of people, and you hadn't had a chance. Meta is another one. I've been dip buying on this. I've dip buyed a couple. The dip, as the one guy says, I buy the dip and the dip keep coming. And that's probably, and that may be the case with this, but, I am going to buy I am a little dip buyer on the Meta. Where's the bottom? I don't know. But, it's, to me, it's like when you get, you're not going to time the bottom, but, definitely look at some of these stocks that have run away on you and look to maybe, Google, another one, all of these, like, even Apple, I would like to see Apple, back down. I like Apple under 260. I think if it gets under 260, I think it's a screaming buy here. I think Tesla still has a way to go, in my opinion. To the downside, Tesla's been very, very strong here. I wouldn't even really look to jump in on Tesla because it has a tendency of backing off pretty hard. I think it's made a pretty good run here. Again, it could keep going, but I wouldn't really look at that one. But these are just some of the names that I'm looking at for potential buying opportunity. I like this. I like General Mills. This thing has gotten the snot beat out of it. And I know food companies in general are not really in flavor, but I do like that one. And the other one, another kind of dog that I like is, unfortunately, I like Verizon here. It kind of made some pretty significant lows just about a week ago. I actually bought a couple hundred shares. And I think the thing about Verizon that makes, sense to me is, number one, it's a cheap stock. It's under $40. But more importantly, what I think is nice about Verizon, not from an option point of view, but from a strategic point of view, you can buy the stock and sell some slightly out of the money calls, like go out to January. What I did is I actually bought the stock and I sold the 40 calls. And it might not sound like a lot to you, but to me, to be able to lock in a couple of $100 in just a month or two on a couple hundred shares, if I have 200 shares and I sell, $200, and hey, if it goes over 40 and it gets called away, so what? And then I think it even pays pretty good dividend, which I don't really give a shit about the dividend. But I think it does. I mean, if that's something that interests you, what is the dividend? I think it's like 20 cents or so. What is the dividend? Is it even on here? Do they even list that on Tasty Trade? I don't even know. Open, bid, is it? It's got to be here. Where the hell is there? It's got to be on here. Where is the dividend? And here's my shares right here, see? And I only sold one call. I might sell another one. I probably will sell another one. But, yeah, so that's what I like. Price earnings. I don't see it. Where is the dividend? Why wouldn't they list the dividend? Am I not seeing something right here? Why am I not seeing it? Why am I not seeing it? Am I not, paying attention? No, they don't. Why wouldn't they do that? What the fuck, Tasty Trade? Garbage, right? What a trash freaking thing. I have to go here. Yeah, it pays it's 69 cents. Almost 7% yield. Now, I don't know if they're going to maintain that. Likely they will, because Verizon's like one of those companies where they pride themselves on their dividends. So anyway, it's a 7% dividend. So if that's something, so we got a lot of things going here, and it's relatively stable. I mean, look, it's been kind of a piece of junk for quite a while. It really hasn't done anything. This is the 1 year. It's literally at or near 1 year lows. We'll go up to the 5 year, right? It's pretty much has stayed in this spot forever. I mean, forever I can think about, outside of a year plus ago, back 23, 2021, 22, it was up $60 and it's down to 39. I don't know. Again, it's kind of like, it's one of these dog with fleas that if you're an option person, you can kind of take advantage of a little dog shit stock that may not necessarily go anywhere, and that would be beautiful if it doesn't go anywhere, because then you could just roll your options and make some money. Now, I highly recommend, if you're going to do that sort of thing, do it in an IRA so you don't have to pay taxes. I'm not a tax advisor. I don't claim to be, but when you do all these income type of trades, try to avoid at all cost doing it in a taxable account. I mean, trust me, I've been there, and it sucks. And I have to say, I commend myself in the last it's about 3 or 4 years. I have literally done nothing outside of a taxable account. I could I maybe have 5 trades a year I do in a taxable account. All my other trades are done in an IRA. because I don't want to pay taxes. I'm tired of it. And to me, I highly recommend it. All right, so that's it. That's all I got. So let's see what happens with this market today. I think we're in for a kind of a choppy ride. I think we're going to be all over the place. I think we're going to be, I think we may go up another, 25 or 30 handles. I think we probably go down maybe 30 or 40 more handles. I think it's going to be one of those days for sure. So anyway, trade them tight. And then we have AMD earnings after the close and a couple others, but AMD is really the big one.